But we'll start with the DXY as always, get a feel for the dollar. At the moment, we have seen a pretty bullish dollar since the start of the week, but my bias is pretty bearish. I'm still looking for more downside for the USD. My expectations are still a swing back down to 98. I said yesterday that price for me can pull back anywhere within this range here, and I would still be pretty bearish, expecting a continuation. Of course, this is the low, that's the most recent high, which of course gave us the new low. So technically speaking, if price was to break to the upside above this point, that would be a break of structure, and I would have to probably reanalyze. I probably still would be pretty bearish as a whole with USD because I don't see us pushing back to highs, but it might be a bit more of a complex pullback. It might consolidate a little bit, so I have to reanalyze and go from there. But at the moment, still respecting structure, still in an area where lower high is potentially going to form. We're seeing some rejection this morning. See a bit better on the hourly chart. Perhaps that could be the start of potentially a bit of a lower high. Need a bit more development to really confirm things. It could end up being a bit of a head and shoulder pattern, with the left over here, the head, possibly a right shoulder forms. Then we snap lower. So there might be some downside opportunities off the back of that, but there's a lot of development that needs to be done for that pattern to really present itself. We're in an area where we could sell off, but at the moment, need a bit more information, a bit more signs that says, okay, we are about to. And what I mean basically is rejection, momentum. We'll see how this 4 hour candle does close in the next hour and 51 minutes. That could look a lot different in the next 2 hours basically. So wait to see how it closes, wait to see how momentum shapes up as well. I do think we are in an area where we're likely to form a lower high. So I'm looking at USD starting to push lower, and of course targets back to the prior low, but eventually I do see us still pushing back to 98. And we're in a similar situation with Euro. Euro's been pretty Euro's been pretty weak as well. Still within the confinements of this range because we have been pretty steady with these higher lows. So as long as we don't go and violate structure, break through that low there, I do stay pretty bullish with Euro. We are more or less pulling back into a nice trend line that potentially could act as support as well. I was looking at this zone here yesterday. Respect the prior high of resistance, potentially could act as support and send us higher. We saw a brief reaction in the lower time frames, but didn't really get going. And yeah, price did since go and break through that level. So since that level is not holding, I'm also looking at this area of the trend line. Again, same situation, need to stay above this low. As long as we do that, the bullish bias does remain. But yeah, it's a bit more of a deeper correction than I was expecting there for EURUSD. But as long as we maintain the bullish structure, I'm still looking at buys. So we'll see how price reacts with the trend line, even how it reacts potentially with that low. We might even double bottom there before continuing. I'll keep an eye on that as well. But yeah, still very bullish on Euro. Still looking for price to climb back to highs and eventually go and hit these swing highs up there, 1.57, sorry. So that's still the expectation with EURUSD. Although, yeah, the pullback is a bit more, is a bit deeper than expected, but we're still in the confinements of that market structure. So as long as we don't break through 1.125, the bullish bias does still remain. Over with pound USD, same situation here as well. Still very bullish on pound as a whole. We've of course cleared through major resistance last week, and that has made me very, very bullish on the pair. And the only way for me to become bearish, or at least not bullish, is to see the market climb back underneath that level. If we were to close back below this week, that would be a serious red flag there for pound USD, because essentially the breakout from last week is dismantled and is no longer the breakout. That would then be described as a fake out, and that could of course be a bearish signal for more downside. So I don't want to see price close back below there on the weekly or even the daily chart, to be honest. I don't want to see us close back below that. The main expectation this week is to hold this area of support and continue higher. I also like this range here, just slightly lower, around 1.344. If the market would be kind enough to come back and revisit that, I think that looks like a nice place for a buy, and naturally just looking to swing it back to resistance. Pound USD is very much in a bullish market on the full hour, daily, weekly chart. Momentum's up. The only thing I don't like about Pound USD is that we're just a bit high. You know, the market is a bit stretched. We've been bullish since the low, since Jan basically of this year. The market's been very, very bullish, so we are quite stretched, and we haven't seen much of a pullback. You know, that's the biggest pullback we had, and it was quite violent as well. So as a swing trader, this is not necessarily a trend which I'm overly excited to trade just because of how stretched we are. I like to see us kind of have a deeper correction at some point, and then, you know, something like that could convince me to get back along there for Pound USD. The buys here, I think, still look good, but you know, I wouldn't hold them for more than a couple days, especially if you can get it back to the high. You know, I think that's a healthy target and call it a day there. In terms of dollar CAD, dollar CAD's had some nice retracement as well. We are pulling back into a nice area where potentially we could start to sell off again. I'm noticing a lot of USD pairs in some areas where we could bounce, so that's definitely something to keep an eye on. These are the two levels I've marked out for dollar CAD, this brief area of support before we rally to the downside. A lot of momentum came from there. We're back revisiting that area now. And of course, we do have this range up here. Same situation, lovely consolidation, big drop to the downside from that area too. So both these areas could act as resistance, you know, supply, and give us a continuation. Overall, the market is still very, very bearish for dollar CAD, and I'm still looking for a little bit more downside. I do think there's a good chance the market does come back and retest this area of demand, this brief range where we ripped to the upside with a lot of momentum. And since that breakout, we haven't come back to revisit that area. So I do know there's going to be a lot of buying pressure in that area, and hence the market could be attracted towards this zone. So I do think there's a good chance that dollar CAD just makes its way back to that level. And since we already have a pretty healthy bearish structure in place, lower lows and lower highs, again, as long as dollar CAD does not violate this swing point here, I am looking for this to be a pullback and looking for a continuation. So very, very bearish on dollar CAD. As long as you stay below 1.4, looking for a push into 1.36 basically. In terms of opportunity to short, 1.385 and 1.392 the zones are, I'll call it as. At the moment, still not seeing much rejection. Very sideways here as we come into that level. Need to see price kind of really show momentum to the downside to really justify an entry. But we are starting to slow down, and I would definitely keep a close eye on how things develop here. Dollar CAD is a pair which I am interested in getting involved with. So I do still see a lot more downside for this one. And again, at least a swing back into support. Aussie dollar, again, not the biggest fan of this price action. We're kind of just slowly ascending to the upside. Not a lot to go with this one, to be honest. Just very, very choppy in this ascending channel. Not really market structure, which I'm looking to trade in myself. I just define this as, you know, market kind of consolidating slightly to the upside. So I want price to break away from this, potentially go put a higher low in, and then that's the trade I'm looking to take. Because now we're coming back into fresh lows. We're taking out some weaker structure here, and that's the opportunity which potentially could give us the big swing. Because right now, the fact that we are on this ascending channel just represents the market is tired. Yes, we're still slowly trending to the upside, but we are still tired. So I do think we can potentially break lower and, again, try and find those higher lows to pick up and take to the upside. I've talking about the 0.65 area for a while now. I still think that's a great place to go long from. The big question is, do we get there or not? I have no idea. I just know that if we do get there, I'll be ready and waiting to take the trade. And again, looking at this inverse head and shoulder pattern, left head, right shoulder, you know, and of course, that's kind of like your neckline there. So yeah, Aussie dollar, very bullish longer term. I'll probably say I'm bearish short term just because I'm looking for a bigger retracement, but I don't see a short to take advantage of anyway. So just kind of focus on the buys here, and hopefully we can take some longs. But still a long way to wait, even if the price does get there. So not a lot to do with that pair in my eyes at the moment. New Zealand dollar, again, just kind of boxing this off as a range, to be honest. I still like the buys down low. If price was to push there, looking at big double bottom essentially, maybe we can tag back into some support here. Prior resistance turn support there as well. So that would be a nice complement for the trade. But long term, similar with Aussie dollar, I'm pretty bullish for XAGUSD. So if I don't get this opportunity here, I wouldn't mind a breaking retest of this level here. Let's say if the market does rip to the upside very well, this does look like a nice place for a buy. It's been resistance very well on 3 separate occasions. So I think there's a good chance it does act as support. And I think that'd be a great place to put a stop loss below him. Hopefully capitalize on a continuation back to highs. So I do have a couple opportunities which look a little bit more reasonable here with XAGUSD. I like the longs here still. If we were to get there, we'll have to wait and see. And if price does decide it wants to break to the upside, well, the retest could look interesting as well. But in terms of the bigger move, still pretty bullish on New Zealand dollar. I'm still pretty bearish on USD as well. So long term for these USD pairs, I do think USD weakness will be a big driving force for all of them. In terms of gold, we did see some rejection yesterday, so I've been pretty bearish on this one. I haven't really got going with gold, but the key thing is we're still below this descending channel. We're still respecting the upper end of the channel. So as long as that stays true, I stay bearish. If I see price go and clear this resistance and see a strong close above this, then I stand corrected. And at that point, I'll be looking for a swing back to 3,500 for gold. So I could be pretty bullish on gold on this one, but we need to clear that resistance and break out the channel. If not, we've got a very good chance of another lower high forming here. One over there, second over there, and that's your third. And of course, if that is respected, you could probably see a swing back into support just below 3150 there. So I'm pretty bearish on gold for now. I think a nice entry for gold would be a nice double top at the highs. Let's say if we rally back into resistance again, respect it well. I think that's a really nice entry signal. Stops above the high there and targets more or less back into support. I think that could look good there. But of course, if we were to break through, I would switch the bias around. But for now, still pretty bearish there with gold. And in terms of silver, not much of an update with silver, to be honest. Yeah, still very much just in this range. I do think long term we are likely to break higher. The reason why I do have that long term bullish bias is simply because of the long term bullish trend we've got here. So I do expect more upside. There's no signs of this trend not continuing. So I do think, again, it will continue. And yeah, I do expect to see new highs past this swing high here at 35. So gold, silver, long-term bullish bias still intact. It's gold right now kind of hovering at that lower high. So for now, I'm pretty bearish on that until we break to the upside. In the case of silver, I'm just kind of neutral. High time frames bullish, but I just don't see an opportunity to trade that, especially when we're coming into resistance right now. It doesn't make any sense looking to buy there. Perhaps there might be some buys on the break and retest, but still not the biggest fan because overall trading in supply there. I don't really want to be looking to take buys at these prices. Hence why I've been talking about some bigger pullbacks to these areas where I know we're back at some bullish territories, coming to some areas of demand where I know I can get a decent swing position. But yeah, silver just very, very flat. I don't really see a clear-cut trade for this one, to be honest, so leaving it alone.